What's up, everyone? Nick here from The Real Heroes Show to discuss the series finale of Hawkeye, Episode 6, entitled So This Is Christmas. Full disclosure, there will be spoilers, so if you haven't seen the episode yet on Disney+, go check it out. But if you have, then I imagine you're here to see what I have to say about this episode and of the show in its entirety. The way I want to approach this video is going through each of our characters, main and minor, while providing some insights for each one. I'll do my best to provide chapter details in the description for this video. If you want to jump around, that's totally fine. At the end, I will provide an overall review for this episode and for the Hawkeye series in its entirety, and what might be coming in the future for our characters in this series. To start it off, we have to pay our attention to the best character in the show, Lucky the dog. Yes. Pizza Dog has a name finally, as we find out. It's at the end of the episode, of course. I know. But he's happy. He's around a lot of people in love on that snowy Christmas day, and it's great. No, but in all seriousness, we have to start with Kingpin. I'm sorry. I know the show is called Hawkeye, and Kate Bishop with Haley Steinfeld is amazing, and the reason behind the show to begin with, but Kingpin, Wilson Fisk, Vincent D'Onofrio, a lot of people were wondering if he was going to be in the show to begin with. We got a picture from a cell phone in the last episode. People weren't sure if we were actually going to see him in the flesh in this finale. But man, did we ever. And from the very get-go, too, which was great. He has that conversation with Eleanor Bishop. She wants to leave. He's not happy about it, right? He's got that twitch. I obviously can't do it as well as Vincent. And if you've seen the Netflix series from Daredevil, that's where it alludes to, it comes from. Whenever he got upset or pissed off or frustrated, aggravated, especially when it came to Daredevil or anything that really troubled him in that series of Daredevil season 1 and 3. It was, spoilers on that if you haven't seen it. If not, well, you're really missing out, not just from his performance, but from Charlie Cox's Daredevil and Matt Murdock performance as well. But it's great to see that. Not only do we see him want to take out Eleanor Bishop, but also he lies to Maya's face, says that he loves her, which as soon as she leaves the room, he turns to Kazi and says, "You know what we must do." And he looks to Kazi to carry out the deed of taking her out. I'm going to fast forward a little bit with Kingpin, of course, just to build his whole character in this episode. He has a face-off with Kate Bishop. He gets shot in the chest, isn't fazed by the arrow. Then he gets rammed by the car that Eleanor drives, which you don't... it kind of came out of nowhere, of course, but you don't really hear it coming until he gets smashed through the windshield, or sorry, through the window. And we realize how strong Kingpin is, or rather we remember how strong Kingpin is and was from the Daredevil series on Netflix. And he seems to be holding back a bit with Kate, as he says she's starting to become more annoying. He throws her off like a fly. And he obviously gets a little banged up because she gets the cufflink trick shot with the flick that Clint taught her, and all the trick arrows going off at once. It leaves him stunned. A little banged up. He eventually escapes because the cops can't find him when they get to the scene. He's in the alleyway, sees Maya. Maya holds a gun to him. We don't see him get shot. We hear the gun go off, but we don't see him get shot. And if there's any sort of rule in cinema about that, unless we see it, he's not dead. And they're not going to bring him back and merge him from the Netflix series in the MCU just to kill him off in Hawkeye. I'm sorry, that's not going to happen. I don't see it. I don't believe it. I think there's going to be a lot more of Kingpin in the future. It may just be on Disney Plus, but I think we're going to see him in an MCU movie eventually, possibly against Spider-Man. You know, if you're familiar with the comics or even the old animated cartoon series, Kingpin and Spider-Man were, they had beef. Let's just say that. Overall, Vincent D'Onofrio, again, he killed it. It's like he never missed a beat with this. He was great. Loved his quirks, again, with like the twitching, the lines, his sheer force and power, and his delivery was excellent as always. Just a couple things to touch up on with Eleanor. We obviously know that her husband owed Kingpin a lot of money, which was repaid tenfold. She wants out. She kept copies as a backup plan, and then claims to Kate later on that she was, quote unquote, blindsided by everything, which, insert the Anchorman meme of, I don't believe you, because I don't believe her at all. I think if anything, she knew. She got in, and of course, after her husband died in 2012 with the Chitauri attack in New York, I think she realized that she could take over, but had to dig herself out of this hole that her husband begot them in the first place. And she gets arrested, right? Kate calls the cops on her. She gets arrested, and then she throws this line at Kate by saying, "Is this what heroes do?" And the answer to that is yes. Because we know in that episode, Clint says to Kate, heroes have to make tough decisions. And that is a tough decision. But it's something that Kate puts 2 and 2 together and realizes, you did a lot of bad stuff, Mom. The murdering of Armand, hiring Yelena to kill Clint, and everything else on top of that. So she's far from innocent, and it sucks to say that. And of course, she still says, I love you, Mom. And that's going to be something that she'll have to, live with every day. And I don't know if we'll ever see anything more about, Eleanor later on in the MCU. Maybe if there's another Kate Bishop Hawkeye season 2, who knows? Or a different season altogether. Again, just entitled like Kate Bishop. It's possible. More on that later, though. Now we're going to turn to our main characters with Kate and Clint. Obviously, Kate is shocked by finding out the truth that Yelena was hired from her mother to kill Clint. It's a hard truth pill to swallow, especially for someone that she's idolized, looked up to since she was a little girl, found all her inspiration and found all her beliefs, her courage, her bravery, and her strength in as well, because she didn't really have a father figure up to that point. It was her real dad, and then he dies. Clint saves her, and then she kind of just looks to him and lives through him vicariously whenever she picked up that bow in the first place, and then tried to be the best that she could in every single facet, whether it be fencing, martial arts, everything, right? To be the best. And it was all because of Clint Barton. In that moment when Clint mentions the word, "You're my partner," it was such a great moment, I think. And Haley, pulled that emotion off so well, as she did this entire series and season. I thought it was hilarious when Kate was using the label gun to label all the trick arrows, like dangerous. And of course, we see a bunch of trick arrows. There's probably at least, what seems to be like 2 to 3 dozen. There's a Pym arrow, there's a pepper spray, there's a magnetic arrow, there's like, some multi-rapid fire arrows. There's a trick arrow that splits off into 3. There's a bunch. I really liked all the trick arrows that they included. There's a toxic arrow, an acid arrow, right? Like a bright explosion arrow. Like there's a bunch, and I really it was great to see all that, because we only got to see some trick arrows briefly in, I think, episode 3 on the bridge. And I think one of the greatest parts in this episode too is when she finally opens up to Clint and tells him about 2012, and him saving her, him being there, that he doesn't have these abilities to fly or shoot lasers out of his hands, but that if he can do it, then I can do it. And that's true, though. Not all heroes wear capes, as we've heard the expression numerous times, right? The Christmas party was a big scene. She calls out her mother about Kingpin, and again, that's when she's like, I'm blindsided. Yeah, well, we'll see about that. One of the other favorite parts of this entire episode was her and Yelena, so Haley and Florence. Great chemistry, I thought. I really want to see more of them in the future together. I don't know if they'll do some sort of Young Avengers thing with both of them or what, or if they'll just meet on opposite sides. But regardless, I thought they were great. And we'll talk a little bit more about them once I get to Yelena's part. But it seemed that Yelena wasn't really trying that hard to stop Kate, or rather hurt her, not stop her, but she was trying to prevent her from, stopping Yelena herself. But at the same time, the dialogue of, when Yelena's trying to jump out the window, and Kate throws something at her hand that stops her, and she's like, "Ow, that's really hurt." And I know there's a terrible accent. My apologies. I didn't rehearse that part. Sorry. But again, just the dialogue there. And she's like, Kate's like, "Stop making me like you." And she's like, "I know it's tough. I do that." And again, I think that's the idea. At least it seems the idea that they wanted us to appreciate their characters and appreciate them kind of squaring off, but not really squaring off in a heated way, because of that girls' night that they had right in the previous episode. So, of course, when we see Clint in the tree, Kate is looking for him, asking where he is. She fires the trick arrow that melts the part of the tree, and obviously makes it fall onto the ice rink. The one thing that I thought, which is actually kind of interesting, is when she yells "on my signal," which I thought was, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe is a callback to when Steve Rogers would make that remark. So I'm not sure if she knew that or if it's just, "on my signal" is a pretty common phrase anyway, but if you have subtitles on, it was in quotes. So again, it could just be you're quoting the line because it's a very popular line, or if it's something that maybe she knew or is just an Easter egg for us, knowing that Steve Rogers has said that before. But again, it could just be a pure coincidence. The Pym arrow was hilarious because we see the owl in the tree with Clint, and she says, "What happens now?" And Clint's like, "I don't know. I'll have to ask Scott about that." Scott Lang being Ant-Man. And the owl comes in, scoops up the truck, and you hear like these tiny, tiny voices from the shrunken tracksuit Mafia guys in there. Again, that part made me laugh. I thought it was, the kind of your typical MCU humor, but again, I thought it was great. I mentioned the cufflink flick to the trick arrows. So she's picked up a lot of what she's learned already from Clint. So she's a fast learner. Obviously, her being skilled in martial arts and archery and everything else. So we know that she is very talented and has the potential to really be the next Hawkeye, which we know she does eventually in the comics, of course. And towards the end, I knew that, and I had said this before, that why not just go back, lay low in the Bartons' home, which I guess maybe it was a little bit more fitting to have it done at the end, going home for Christmas, because Kate's obviously not going to go back to Jack and spend Christmas with him. Her mother's in jail. She doesn't really have anyone else at that point. So, yeah, come back to the Bartons. And the reception for her, it was warm, and they burned the Ronin suit, so it's sort of finish what you started, right? That's why this season essentially takes place. And she tries to come up with some nicknames. They're all terrible. And then Clint says, "Hey, I have an idea." And then it cuts to the Hawkeye, logo, and screen and credits. And I believe that she'll obviously get trained, and we all know that she does in the comics. I wonder if we'll see any of that, or if it'll just be a fast forward and she's already received a good bit of training, and that way she'll actually be able to, really take herself seriously in the field and have some, tougher opponents in the future. The one thing I'll say about, Clint, obviously, is him coming around and being more accepting of Kate, and he gives some advice saying that about the job itself, what it means to be a hero, what it means to be an Avenger. It's lonely. You'll get hurt. You have to make tough decisions, which we see all that happen for the most part in this season alone. She has to make a tough decision about her mother. She feels lonely to the point where she has no family left, but Clint obviously invites her to be with his family. So, yeah, but she'll get hurt. She got hurt physically when that fight with the Kingpin, as Clint says, you took on him, 1v1, and fought the tracksuit Mafia, which is easy, and somewhat had a little bit of a skirmish with Yelena, but that was I don't want to say a friendly bout, but it was more of like an exhibition match that didn't really mean much because they weren't really trying to hurt each other there. More so slow each other down. A little bit more with Clint, I'll say, is he's obviously still skilled with his setups and traps. His little brief fight with Kazi, and he gave him that suplex, which was great. And he says it was fun. I really liked the slow-mo shot between the two of them. I don't know if that was a callback to the circulating shot with the two of them to Age of Ultron. Obviously, that shot with Age of Ultron is great, and this one is as high on like a caliber scale, but it still kind of seemed of a bit of an homage to me, or a little bit of an Easter egg to me with that. And probably the biggest point of reference with the past and Clint and Yelena is when they finally square off, and Clint having to get his ass kicked by Yelena, even though he's not really trying to hurt her as well. He's just trying to kind of fend himself and stay alive, and try to get her to see the truth, try to get her to see the reason behind everything, even though he says, I'd like to tell you the truth, but you won't believe me if I told you. Like, who's going to believe her, or who's going to believe him saying that, yeah, there's this giant purple Eternal Titan guy who had these stones that he gathered from across the universe, snapped his fingers, that's why you disappeared. The only way to bring you back was to try and get these 6 other stones by doing a time heist, in which Nat and I went together to Vormir, a mysterious planet where we saw a Red Skull, who you may or may not know from Hydra, and then I wanted to fight her for it. She wanted to fight me for it. In the end, she fought harder and won and sacrificed herself. That might be a lot to believe and swallow, and of course, he gives her a shortened version of the truth, saying that he sacrificed herself, or she sacrificed herself. Yelena is saying, too bad, you should have fought harder. And again, there's this denial, there's this disbelief, this hard truth pill to swallow from Clint's information and to Yelena here. I don't blame Yelena for this at all, but because she obviously comes around once Clint answers the whistle that Yelena and Natasha used to do when they were kids. Of course, we saw from the Black Widow movie, and he references scenes in the Black Widow movie about her flying the plane, being scared, and growing up together as kids. And it was obviously a great time, because that's essentially how Florence Pugh and Yelena came into this movie. And she basically and essentially forgives or understands that Clint wouldn't have killed her intentionally, and that maybe he is telling the truth because of what he said, because he's not trying to stop her and kill her, whereas she's trying to do that to him. And I think, again, it was a good, touching moment. It was some good character building for Yelena in the stance of her getting to realize there's more to this story, and I wonder if she'll retrace her steps and say, like, Clint isn't the bad guy here, and obviously, even though she was hired to kill him, she had previous motives from the ending of Black Widow, because again, she gets this news from Julia Louis-Dreyfus, her character, that Val, as her character's name is Valerie, right? That Clint killed Natasha. What a lie! But I think it's time for Clint Barton to retire as Hawkeye. I'm not too sure if Jeremy Renner wants to continue playing the character. Probably not, and I think he's probably cool with passing the torch, or maybe just being a little bit of a mentor. Again, I don't know if we're going to see any of them together, any more of them together in future series or movies, but we'll see what Mr. Kevin Feige has up the pipeline. The other thing that happens at the end is he obviously gets the Rolex back and gives it to his wife Laura, which we see on the back of the Rolex is the SHIELD logo with the numbers 19, which is a callback to the Agents of SHIELD, and finally putting an end to that, which again was nice, because I personally, I never finished watching the Agents of SHIELD. I kind of just it kind of fell off to me. But if you've watched Agents of SHIELD, or read about it, then again what all that was. So, but yeah, it was a good turning point for Clint. The last couple things I'll say about Yelena here. I already mentioned her chemistry between her and Kate, or Haley, and Florence. I think what's coming for Yelena is that maybe she'll be the new Black Widow. Again, if they do some sort of Young Avengers take, we've already got Cassie Lang, we've got Kate Bishop. Depending on what we'll actually see from Doctor Strange 2 and the Multiverse of Madness, we might see Wanda's kids come back into real life, not a fake version in Westview. We could potentially see Yelena Belova be Black Widow and a part of that, or she might just kind of still remain as an assassin and be solo. They could do anything they want in the MCU. They often don't stick so much to the source material. Obviously, with this series and season of Hawkeye, they did pull from the source material, but there's obviously things that they changed because they kind of had to, due to rights and whatnot. But I think they made it work pretty damn close to the comic run. So we'll see. I know that's not the end of Florence Pugh being in the MCU and seeing her in Marvel movies or shows. So it'll be cool. Last but not least, I want to talk about Maya. Obviously, she has to put an end to Kazi, even though she wanted to step away with him. He kind of left her no choice, and we see her fighting with her prosthetic leg, which was kind of cool. And all she would want to do is just leave, right? But then after she, left Kazi there, we don't see her run away. She wants to finish the job and find Kingpin. But as I mentioned earlier in this video, we hear the gunshot. We don't see her actually killing Kingpin. So I think, we know she's still alive, right? Because she's getting her own show as Echo. So it'll be interesting to see where that actually goes. I want to say that it comes out in 2023. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I also think we'll probably see some more Kingpin in that point. Again, I'm not too sure what they'll pull from source material for her season, her show, and we might see some. Some Daredevil. Who knows? Again, what they might do with Charlie Cox and Matt Murdock and Daredevil is completely up in the air. We don't know. Especially after, the scene with him and Spider-Man in it. And last but not least, again, the last but not least, Jack and the jumpsuit, tracksuit mafia, rather. Jack's conversation with the Armand kid and him peeing in his pants in the hand was hilarious. Him talking shit to a kid was just low, but again, hilarious. He's a freaking pirate. He busts out his sword. He looks like Captain Jack Sparrow there. He's fencing. He's slicing him up. He gets blood on his tie. He's just enjoying it. He gets invited to the LARPing group and for some leisure activities. And the tracksuit mafia, Ivan says Red 1 in position. That might be an Easter egg to Star Wars. If you're familiar with the OGs. You got, your red ones from the pilots that piloted the X-Wings. So maybe not. Obviously, it's all under Disney now. So that could have been a bit of a callback. And the one guy gets they got girlfriend advice from Kate. Actually pans out. And then they went to Maroon 5 together. So cheers. Even though she had to whip his ass there moments later. Overall, if you skip to this point, you just want to hear my overall, that's totally fine. I really, really enjoyed this series. Not so much about the timing of it all, being around the holidays and kind of having that holiday vibe to it, which was well planned, very thought out. Kudos. The real question is, where does this stand? Where does this compare with our previous MCU shows on Disney Plus? WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, Loki. I'm not going to include What If. Just stick to the live action shows here. I don't know. I might have to make a short video, kind of going more in depth and elaborating more on what I think is better. But I will say this show and Hawkeye exceeded my expectations. I was looking forward to it. Don't get me wrong. I just wasn't sure how well thought out and planned it was going to be. Again, the rumor behind Kingpin may or may not be in it was hard to say. The fact that he was obviously elevated my liking and approval for this show, but also just, again, the chemistry. We got more Florence Pugh than we thought we would. I thought she would only make an appearance at the end, and that would be it, with the possibility of her actually killing off Clint and then forcing Kate Bishop to take his role that way. So, yeah, I think that's one of the great things about, not that my expectation was low and it's easy to surpass, but I think overall I was expecting the show to be about a 7 out of 10. But I think the show, to me, it's fresh. I watched the finale twice. I'll probably watch through the entire series again if and when I have spare time. I want to give it, and I think it deserves an overall rating somewhere between like around an 8.5, maybe up to a 9. Again, I think the finale itself is about a 9. Again, I'd have to go back and see what I said in previous videos. I want to say most of the time I gave it like a 7.5, 8, maybe 8.5 as it ramped up over the course of these 6 episodes. So again, final rating 8.5 to 9, somewhere within that range is what I'm giving it. If you agree, let me know what you think in the comment section below. If you think it's worse and you didn't like it, look, you're entitled to your opinions, and I appreciate you voicing them. And I would just like to know why. I always appreciate when people share their perspectives. It kind of helps broaden the scope as to what you were looking for in this episode, whether they delivered or they didn't deliver. Maybe there were things that you wanted and you didn't get. I'd say overall, it gave me what I was looking for. It gave me the chemistry between Kate and Clint. It gave me more between Kate and Yelena. We got to see the story from Clint and Yelena and Natasha all together. The elaboration of what happened, the truth pills from multiple facets and characters. Kingpin with Wilson Fisk and Vincent D'Onofrio reprising his role. Even some of the supporting characters were hilarious. The LARPers, Jack, and Lucky the dog. I mean, again, just I think they did a great job on this show. Production quality was great. The effects were great. For a Disney Plus show, again, it's some of these Disney Plus shows, especially with the Marvel shows, look better than some of the movies that are coming out, which is great and also crazy. But then Marvel's got a ton of money with Disney, so not surprising there. I think that's going to wrap it up for this video. I think I touched on all the points I really wanted to make from my notes. Again, leave your comments in the comment section below. And I know we've got some more shows coming out next year, a bunch of shows coming out next year, 2022, with Marvel. So I will be covering every single one of them. So be sure to tune in for all those shows. Subscribe to the channel, help support me, and help grow this community here. I really appreciate all the followings lately. It really means a lot, and motivates me to keep pushing out content. Like the video if you like the video. Again, I reply to every single comment. I love having these conversations. It's a lot of fun, again, to kind of get to know people a little bit more and to conversate with them. So that's going to be it from me here at the Real Heroes Show. I wish everyone a safe holiday weekend, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year's if I don't see you until then. So cheers, everyone. Bye.